On the phone, it is a pleasure to welcome to the program the author of Pound Foolish, Exposing the Dark Side of the Personal Finance Industry, Helaine Olen. Welcome to the program, Helaine.
Hi, good afternoon.
Really enjoyed your book. In fact, I'm sitting here. I was motivated to buy Personal Finance for Dummies. Now, we're not going to get into too much of my personal finance illiteracy, but I have to cop to being a fan of AM talk radio, and I have listened to my fair share of Dave Ramsey, and
Right.
have entered into my home and said to my wife, rice and beans, sweetie. We could do this if we can save our way out of our financial issues, and we can become clean and moral people if only we can save our money and get out of debt. And so it was a bit of a relief to realize that that instinct was sort of a little bit unfounded. But let's start with tell us the history of the personal finance industry, which you have. You really do take a part here, and we should say that at one point you were part of this industry as well.
Right. Right. Should I start with my personal story here?
Yeah. Why don't you? And then let's head backwards.
Okay. I got a call one day in 1996 asking me if I knew anything about personal finance from a major newspaper and if I could cover it. And the one thing I knew about personal finance writing was that it paid a heck of a lot more than other journalism. So of course I said yes.
Well, that was your first indication that you knew something about personal finance.
Right, and apparently that was enough. So I take the assignment, and I think this is going to end badly. But instead I get another one, and pretty soon I'm a personal finance writer. So I learned two things from this. The first is that this is actually not that hard on one level, right? All these terms that sound mysterious, like mutual fund, because I didn't know a mutual fund from Mutual of Omaha when I took this gig, are actually pretty easy concepts to understand. On the other hand, of course, nobody knows anything about any of this stuff. We don't know how the stock market's going to do next week or next year or 5 years out. We don't know if we're going to keep our jobs. We don't know if our salaries are going to go up or down. We really have no idea. So there's kind of a contradiction here. We're planning for the unknowable.
And so, okay, so let's go back. I mean, let's talk about how this industry, the roots of this industry, because in many respects, I think it speaks to the popularity of the industry in some way, that it does strike a chord, or at least it fulfills some type of need that we all have, this sense that we have the ability to sort of control our own destiny in some type of mystical way.
Right. It starts, and this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, during the Great Depression, when a woman named Sylvia Porter started writing about these issues in the hopes of educating Americans so that the Great Depression would never happen again. And it sort of becomes bigger and bigger as time goes on because people come back from World War II, we suddenly have more money, and there's nobody else writing about this stuff but Sylvia Porter.
And she had millions. I mean, she had millions and millions of readers.
She had millions and millions of readers because if you wanted money advice, there was nothing else out there for many years. But when it really becomes big starts in the late 1970s, early 1980s. And a couple of things are going on at that point. First, of course, the economy isn't so great. Second, this is when income inequality starts to open up. We start having a harder time getting ahead. And the third thing that goes on is suddenly the Reagan Revolution happens, and we're responsible for more and more things. Corporate pensions begin to go away. We have to save for our own retirements. And we need help. And so we turn to this personal finance industry to tell us how to get by. Every year, as we're struggling to keep up, we need to do more and more. And this industry is out there saying, we have the answers. We're going to help you.
I mean, it's fascinating because it seems to me that in some ways, I mean, the parallel I see is the rise in the popularity and the demand for this type of whether it's you talk about rich dad, poor dad, or these basically these sort of formulas in which we can make money is almost sort of the equivalent of the way that people turn to sort of fundamental religion in some ways as dealing with modernity, because it seems to me that finance became far more complicated in the 70s and 80s, that simultaneously talk about that a little bit. Talk about the rise of things like a 401k, because we've seen just literally in the past week or two, a series of stories about the failure of 401ks and private pensions, and the failure of defined contribution pensions versus defined benefit pensions in providing the baby boomers for a decent retirement. And this is all, of course, happening with the backdrop of the potentiality of cutting Social Security benefits. So, I mean, talk about what was happening in those years, and particularly where the story of 401ks.
Okay, 401ks are a great historic accident. They start as a tax dodge by a number of corporate executives looking to put more of their salary aside without paying taxes, something that should be all very familiar to us today. And instead, what happens is an enterprising attorney named Ted Benna gets the Reagan administration to agree that all of us could do this, not just a couple of high-paid executives. And the next thing we know is the corporate bean counters step in, and they quickly realize, hey, wait a minute. If we can get people to put their salary aside without paying taxes for a while, we don't have to offer pensions. So they start taking away our pensions. So all of a sudden, we go from this world where, we worked for 30 years and we retired with a pension, to this world where we needed to put our own salary aside, put it in the stock market, hope the stock market kept up, hope we didn't need to withdraw that money in case we were unemployed or had a health care crisis or needed to buy our children a college education, and assume it was all going to work out. As, of course, we all know, it didn't work out. The vast majority of people now have less than $100,000 saved for retirement. This is not a sum of money that's going to get anyone very far in retirement. Think about it, $100,000 divided by 20 years, say, 30 if you're lucky. And on top of that, we're estimating that people are going to need $240,000, a couple retiring last year, that is, for health care expenses. Well, if they don't have that, what are they going to do? And this is the roots of the crisis we're now facing.
I mean, it seems to me that it was all sort of a function of this desire to essentially privatize. I mean, these go hand in hand. I mean, when we're talking about the rise of the 401k, I mean, it's a perfect mechanism in which to sort of continually put more of the burden on individuals, and basically, go out and just, we had learned the lesson that the development of Social Security was a function of realizing that at the end of the day, society can provide for people's retirement better than individuals en masse can do. And it really seems that that now I don't know that the industry, that the personal finance industry was pushing for this, but it certainly filled a gap that was opened up by this sort of broad move to privatize sort of the people's retirement and shift the risk to individuals as opposed to institutions being corporations or government.
Right.
And it seems like this was sort of, fruit laying on the ground that people could pick up and start to monetize in some way.
Right. I like to tell people we have this view of the past as this imagined happy time when, grandparents lived with their children and, we all took care of each other. In fact, Social Security was established because older people or children who lost a parent had this distressing tendency to end up in work.
Helaine?
Back then,
Go ahead.
Are you there?
Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Should I start again?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay. So, but when the retirement plans started up, the financial services sector realized very quickly that this was a way to make an awful lot of money. As I always say, they earn hundreds of billions of dollars in profits a year off of our various retirement and savings and brokerage accounts. And as a result, they have hundreds of billions of reasons to sell you on their services. So we have an industry that presents itself as your financial savior in tough times, when in fact a good deal of their business model is actually involved in picking your pocket.
Yes, I mean the amount of seminars. I mean, let's talk a little bit about some of the more popular ones, because Suzy Orman, you really take to task in your book, and give me. I mean, I'm not as familiar with her, but I know part of her shtick is just basically scolding people. You can't afford this, and I guess if people need that type of advice, but it goes beyond that with her, doesn't it?
Yes, all of these people, I like to say they're sort of like, we're the economic victims of a Hurricane Sandy. We're hanging out on the Jersey Shore, and, we need help. And they're saying, oh, we have some umbrellas and sandbags, and this will protect you. And they forget to even mention that they're the ones selling you these umbrellas and sandbags that aren't going to protect you. So what Suzy Orman is doing is she's on TV every week telling people, hectoring people to save more money, weighing in on such life decisions as whether you should have a second child or not, which I would argue goes way beyond personal finance, and, selling us on your need for services. In fact, Suzy Orman was not particularly financially successful before she was a financial guru. She's worth $30 billion. The vast majority of that money comes from her selling you her books, her tapes, her former stock market newsletter, her approved card, and I can go down the list. And the other thing she does, by the way, I should say, which I find hilarious, is she's the sort of financial equivalent of a cook who won't eat their own cooking. She's telling people they have so little money they need to invest in the stock market, but she won't invest in the stock market because she has $30 billion and she can afford to choose not to lose her money.
Yes, I mean, I guess it's an interesting sort of paradox there. I mean, and so basically, you're saying that email that I received from that guy who says, "I've made $2 million, and finally, I'm going to share with all of you so that you can all get rich." He's probably not on the up and up.
Well, what I always like to say is, if somebody really had the secret as to what was going on in the stock market and how to pull this off, unless your last name is Buffett or Gates, why on earth are they telling you? Certainly they're going to make a lot more money setting up on a boat on the tax-free seas off the Cayman Islands and trading away in anonymous happiness. So by definition, you really have to start asking questions very early, Ed.
And what is the most egregious? I mean, would you say? I mean, because again, listening to a lot of AM talk radio, I hear ads for things like banking on yourself. And for the life of me, I can't quite figure out. I mean, I tried to go online and figure out what it is, but it's some type of like insurance scheme where you get annuities. I'm not quite sure I even understand the words that I just said. But what is the most sort of egregious of these sort of advice that people get?
There's so much out there, it's hard to know, to give you one answer. But the thing I've really singled in on right now is the free lunch and dinner circuit, which is if you're over 50, you start getting these invitations in the mail where they very much target a problem that, we're all thinking about, like retirement, getting by with less at old age, the government taking your money for taxes. And then they invite you to a free lunch or dinner, usually at a nice place like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, to hear about this, where you go, and at which point they scare you to death. I've been to several of these, and they tend to say things like, Social Security is going to get cut, your retirement benefits are going to be taxed, and otherwise scare you, and then offer your product, and annuities is a big one, by the way, as the solution. And these are, of course, high commission, high fee products that put an awful lot of money in the pockets of the person standing in front of you.
And so, I mean, the overall, the interesting thing about this is, it seems to me, is it creates this, and I think you refer to it as an illusion of control,
Right.
And
it allows you to think you're doing something. It doesn't let you admit I have a problem and maybe other people have a problem too. Instead, it's presented as everybody else is doing fine and you're not, but here's the way for you to do fine.
And I mean, talk about the implications of this, because it's not just a question, I think, in my mind, of individuals getting scammed, but it also serves to sort of continue and perpetuate this move to sort of privatize and undercut the ability of policy in society as a whole addressing these issues.
Right. Well, it turns what really is our collective finances. Most of us don't have enough money saved for retirement. Most of us don't, 50% of us are living paycheck to paycheck with little or nothing in the way of savings. Most of us, if we need to send a child to college, are looking at massive loans. The average number right now is $27,000. And instead of saying, gosh, we all have a problem and we need to start working on this, it sort of makes what is a political problem personal and turns it into your personal financial problem. So we all think we're going down separately when, in fact, we're going down together, but we don't realize it. And the only group that's really making out from all of this, of course, is the financial services sector, which is collecting money every which way and dealing with us, from the student loans, from the fees on 401k retirement accounts, from the tapes and seminars they're selling you, from the financial products, they like to call them products, you're buying in an attempt to keep up with your rising living expenses.
Do you see a parallel? I mean, that sort of broad construction of these of issues, and whether it's, I see it in the context of environmental issues. There was a big rise in the 90s of basically saying, like, we're going to deal with all these environmental issues by making sure that you separate your paper and your plastic in your home, taking these issues that at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing for individuals to, not spend willy-nilly, but it's not a bad thing for people to recycle. But at the end of the day, these are all issues that really need to be addressed as a society through government policy. But in some way, there's been this sort of, I guess what has happened in terms of finance is also mirrored in other areas where it is this rise of individualism and a sort of a perception that society and government is a roadblock in some respects, right, rather than sort of the best way to address these issues.
Right. Academics actually have a term for this. They call it responsibilization. And the idea is that these are things we once expected the government to do for us, or the corporate sector, like pensions, like helping us out in old age, like making sure that college costs didn't go out of control by having affordable state universities, like having affordable health care with reasonable costs, and instead took away those protections or weakened them significantly and tossed it back on you, the individual. And I'd like to say, by the way, thank you for using the recycling example, because that's actually one of my personal favorites as well, is that we're all going to solve the environment by, just sorting our papers and our plastic. And, of course, the corporations, which are responsible for the vast majority of pollution, just sort of go on and nobody says a word.
Yeah, how do we, what is the antidote to this? Obviously in the context of, let's start in terms of finance and then broaden this out. What is the, because there's this tension. I used to have this argument all the time with my co-host. The question of how can these these barons of industry continue to pollute? Don't they realize that their kids are going to be living in this planet as well? And my theory has always been they do realize that, and they think the best way to deal with sort of some type of massive crisis of civilization because of what they're doing to the environment is to stockpile as much money as possible so that their kids are living in the gated community or the floating bubble or living, in a palace in Canada. So we have this tension where we want to deal with our own, we want to make sure that, our own personal finances, the finances of our kids are in good shape. what should people be doing in terms of personal finance to the extent that there's anything they can do? And then let's talk about what's the antidote to the broader structural problem of this personalization.
Well, my first, response has been is we need to start talking about it. We have this very powerful culture of shame around money in our country, which is why we were able in some ways to be sold all of this, because none of us are going to be failures, right? This is a country where we believe very deeply in the myth of Horatio Alger. Anybody can make it. Now, as I like to tell people, Horatio Alger was a writer of fiction. We live in a country with, very limited social mobility, roughly the social mobility of like a second world country like Chile or Argentina. Europe, which we think of as, class-bound and upstairs, downstairs, is actually way ahead of us. And I really began to feel the first thing we needed to do was simply acknowledge what was going on. And I always felt, I should add, that was kind of the genius of Occupy, that they were the first movement, and I like to say this to people who I know don't like Occupy as well. I'm assuming most of the audience on this show likes it. But they were the first movement in maybe 30 or 40 years where somebody finally made the intuitive leap and said, gosh, you're going bankrupt from medical debt. Your house was just foreclosed on. Your student loans are unreal and you can't get a job. Maybe we all have a problem here and we need to start discussing it. And I think that is actually the first step we can take collectively to begin to get somewhere. The more we all realize we're in it together, the more our institutions will begin to respond to us and change.
I mean, to what extent do you think, because, my sense is that when I listen to these guys, like Dave Ramsey in particular, but even this past weekend, I couldn't help myself, and a local financial investment guy was dipping into politics and talking about how entitlements are out of control and we need to balance the budget and the sort of the classic fix the debt type of mentality. But he's just a local guy in Albany offering an opportunity to invest with him. I couldn't help it but call in. But it does seem that these personal finance gurus all share that sort of same political ideology that in some ways perpetuates the need for their product. How conscious do you think they are of that, or is it simply that's when you're a hammer, everything's a nail?
I think all of the above. I think a lot of these people do come from a fairly conservative place, first of all. Second, in terms of the talk about entitlements, this has been a 20-year barrage at this point, of nonstop, I hate to use the word, but almost like literally propaganda that our problem is Social Security. Now, of course, you and I know that there's a very easy way to solve the Social Security problem. That would be to take off the pay cap and start taxing benefits over $113,000. But in fact, that doesn't happen. And the reason it doesn't happen is because the people who are controlling this debate are the people who are often earning that amount of money and more, and really aren't very interested in paying taxes on it.
And so, what is the antidote? To this in a broader sense. Obviously, you've talked about you're writing this book, and that is it is to get sort of to make people take that turn. And I've always contemplated in the past. For years, back in the days of Air America, I was saying that we should come up with a finance show that contextualizes people's problems in the context of what is happening in society and governmental policy. But it's tough to sort of come up with what the third episode of that is.
Right.
Once you say those things that like, hey, look, we're all dealing with this. Where do you go from there?
Right. I've said any number of things because it does feel really almost like a knot right now that you can't break. But there's a lot of different parts of it. And as I said, the first part is talking about it. The second part is getting people to mobilize. It is very interesting that every time the concept of chain CPI, the cut in Social Security benefits, comes up, people who would be affected actually appear to be very concerned about this and start calling their Congress people and push back very hard. And so far, it hasn't happened. Obviously, people need to keep doing that. The third part, is stuff like campaign finance reform. One of the issues in the personal finance sector is this idea that the vast majority of financial salespeople, we think they need to act in our financial best interests. In fact, they have no such duty to us. They only sort of have to kind of act in our best interests, the thing called the suitability standard. And, the Obama administration has for years, through the Department of Labor and through the SEC, been trying to get a handle on this and impose what is called the fiduciary standard, which is the idea that people who are selling financial products have to always act in our best interests, to do just that. And every time this comes up, the pushback is enormous from people in Congress and other lobbyists. And, of course, when you look at their fundraising records, the pushback often comes from people who are getting a lot of money from the financial services sector. So that's a huge part of the problem, too. And just to go on, why this is such a huge problem, a bunch of professors at Harvard a couple of years ago set up a study where they hired a bunch of actors to go in. We gave them fake portfolios, sent them into banks and brokerages, and said, what would you do with us? And over again, they were, told they should invest in, make changes they didn't need to make, buy products they didn't need, buy high-fee managed mutual funds when a low-cost index fund would have been best, and so on down the line. But the best part of the study comes when these actors go back to the researchers at Harvard, and not only didn't they realize they'd gotten bad advice, they actually said, more than two-thirds of them said they would go back. They thought these brokers were so amazing, they would make plans to go back to them with their real portfolios.
The actors themselves, knowing that they were part of the study, even when,
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah, even they fell for it. Which it shows you how persuasive this stuff can be, and why we so desperately need to be protected from a lot of it.
Is it a function of how persuasive it is, or is it a function of how just overwhelmed people are in terms of both the complications of our financial lives now, and the fact that in some ways it's just so opaque. I mean, I certainly feel that way myself personally. That
Right.
I really, and it's sort of just easier for me to just sort of say like, I'll just let everything will work out.
Right. It's a combination of all of the above. People are, don't know much about this. It is made deliberately opaque by the financial services industry because, of course, that's how they make their money, is by people not knowing much about this. People are busy. They don't have time to, go read Personal Finance for Dummies, constantly and over again. The nature of what you're investing in changes constantly. I mean, 10 years ago, who heard of an ETF, right?
Right.
And then finally, people are scared and desperate. And these salespeople, these brokers, these advisors, whatever you want to call them, are very much trained to be persuasive. I mean, they do come across as your best friend, and they do come across as somebody who wants to help you.
So, lastly, let me ask you this. I mean, this is a little bit off topic, but I wonder if your thoughts on it, because you've been obviously thinking about this relationship that people have to government in terms of its capacity to sort of, execute broad policy that will affect their lives in some ways, because that's really, it seems to me, in many respects, what at the end of the day much of this is about. But the sequester seems to be all but inevitable at this point, and in my estimation, my sense is better the sequester, and it's sad that we only have these two options that were on the table, better the sequester than some type of future cuts in Medicare by raising the eligibility age, or cuts in Social Security by calculating a cost of living increase, which actually underreports the cost of living for seniors. Right. Do you think that there is any chance that in the event the sequester hits, that people start to make this connection between broad government policy and actually how it impacts their daily lives? Because we're going to see a diminishment of services in some level. I mean, do you...
I do think so, and I'm old enough to remember what happened when Newt Gingrich shut down the federal government in 1995, and people made the connection pretty darn quick then, too. I actually think people have made the connection. I don't think very many people want to see these services get cut. I would argue we're being held up at this point. And, this is almost becomes, I don't want to say it's quite a Scylla and Charybdis-like choice, because I essentially agree with you. Better a short-term cut, sequester cut, than a long-term full-on, change CPI for Social Security and massive cuts to, government social safety programs. But I do think people do see this, and I think, people feel very powerless right now. And which is why I just say we need to begin to talk about this and begin to really, call your congressman. I mean, I know that sounds terribly old-fashioned, right? But that's what they told you in school. If you don't do it, no one's hearing you.
And also, you can. It's a great opportunity to go and flip houses now, right, with the low mortgage rates?
But hey, if you can get a mortgage, which is the problem right now, right, is there's all these great mortgage rates out there, but good luck to you trying to get a hold of one.
Indeed.
But of course, if you listen to Robert Kiyosaki, you could just do it on your credit card.
That's the rich dad, poor dad thing.
That's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was one of his. I mean, he doesn't actually say it himself, but if you pay the several $100s to go to his seminars, that's among the advice they give you, is to get your credit limit raised so that you have money on hand for a good investment. And not surprisingly, I interviewed people for my book who had done exactly that, had bought houses with money, with down payments raised from their credit card. Hey, why not pay 30% interest, right?
Right, indeed. Well, Helaine Olen, the book is Pound Foolish, Exposing the Dark Side of Personal Finance. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. We have a link up to your book at majority.fm.